hanging half 100 on them at Owen Field, or the run rules on the diamond at Love's Field. We're giving you the breakdowns, the bets, and the hot takes from the perspective of two former OU Athletics employees. You're listening to the Mainline Podcast with Tyler Burton and Adam Jaquez.
Let's go! Let's go! Go!
Let's go. Welcome to the Mainline. I'm Adam Jaquez. He's Tyler Burton. We're calling this episode Rock Bottom, which, Tyler, I realized we probably would have said Rock Bottom was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and it keeps getting worse. So hopefully this is the true rock bottom and things cannot get any worse than they are right now for Oklahoma football. Tyler, welcome in this evening. How are we today?
Adam, I'm not good. I walked out of the Cotton Bowl on Saturday, hopped in the car, and that 2.5 hour ride back up north across the Red River to the state of Oklahoma was probably the most down moment that I've had in my 30 years on this planet as an Oklahoma football fan. It's not good, plain and simple. It's pretty remarkable how far we have fallen in such a short amount of time, particularly on the offensive side of the football. And obviously we're gonna dive into it here in a little bit, and we encourage everybody that's part of the chat, put your comments in here as well. We're all in this together. We're gonna suffer, we're gonna fight, and hopefully we're gonna come out on the other side a little bit stronger for it. But Adam, it's we're at DEFCON 5 right now with this Oklahoma football program. I think that you had a perfect example before we hit the record button when you were talking about, the outlook of this team, the outlook of this program going forward. And I think you kind of compared it to a guy running a race with one leg. So you've got a really good defense on one side. You've got one of the worst offenses that I think I've ever seen in college football. Definitely the worst offense that I've ever seen in an Oklahoma uniform. Get trotted out there on Saturdays, but it's a bad deal all the way around, whether you want to look at personnel, whether you want to look at coaching, whether you want to look at morale. It's just not a good situation right now. We're going to try and make heads or tails of it. And it's not good. Not good at all.
I think what hurt the most was Sunday, Monday, and today, just the constant stream of stats that have come out about how bad this offense is. Just no explosive plays, no yardage, nothing basically. There's absolutely nothing that worked for this offense. And we sat here, a week ago, and we talked about going into this Texas game. Yes, there needs to be some wrinkles, but wrinkles won't win you the game. And early on, at least the first maybe possession and a half, you thought, okay, they're doing some interesting things. There's a lot of movement. They're shifting in formations. There's motion. There's rollouts. They're giving Michael Hawkins just one side of the field to read. It's like, okay, that's simplifying things for a young quarterback to get him into rhythm. And then they just stuck in that mode in the Cotton Bowl. And you're like, okay, you have to do something beyond the wrinkle. You have to be able to go back to your base offense and say, hey, we're going to beat you with our bread and butter now. And then we'll throw the wrinkle again when you're not expecting it. And it's like, oh man, we're just going to roll out, have two options to throw to, run pass option, and made it incredibly easy for Texas to defend us the entire game. There's absolutely no progression from Michael Hawkins. And we'll talk about the quarterback situation in a second, but the game plan was just bewildering in terms of what we were trying to do. It felt a lot like the Cotton Bowl 2 years ago when Davis Bevel and the whole Wildcat and everything. And it just kind of felt like, it almost felt like we were giving up. And this time it felt like maybe Brent Venables' game plan was to give up on offense and hope that your defense can bail you out. And the rhetoric that we got out of Brent Venables in his coach's show, in the press conference, was not great in my opinion. It felt a little tone deaf in terms of him just kind of continuing to critique the defense and not address nearly as much of the problem, which was the offense. Now in his press conference today on Tuesday, a little bit better, but I was getting really concerned. I was like, okay, dude, we gotta address and at least publicly acknowledge what's going on with the offense.
Yeah, it's the second time in 3 years in Red River that Oklahoma does not score a touchdown on offense and gets blown out yet again by Texas. And you go back and you look at the OU drive chart from Saturday. Adam, missed field goal, punt, field goal to make it 3-0, punt, fumble, punt, turnover on downs. Adam, I think going into this game, we knew that for Oklahoma to have any chance whatsoever, the defense was going to have to force a couple of turnovers, create a couple of short fields for Oklahoma's offense to be able to capitalize and put some easy points on the board. And I thought that the game opened up with the perfect script for Oklahoma. You force a turnover on the opening possession. Billy Bowman picks off Quinn Ewers. You get the ball on the Texas side of the field, and you do nothing with it. And, the most frustrating part about it is, and, I felt just downright sorry for the defense. They played their ass off, for the better part of the first half, definitely the first quarter, only giving up 13 yards to Texas in the first 15 minutes. And you had absolutely nothing to show for it on the field. And I think the biggest frustration that I have was the fact that Seth Luttrell and this offensive coaching staff had 2 weeks to prep for Texas. You had a bye week to go in there, look yourself in the mirror. You had 5 games of tape to look at and evaluate what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and you had plenty of extra time to simplify and build a game plan around Michael Hawkins' skill set. And you walk out of the Cotton Bowl on Saturday, and that's what you came up with. That is what you thought was going to give you, the best chance of success against that Texas defense, who was damn good. You give credit where credit's due. Texas is a damn good football team. They're probably the best football team in the country right now. And that's sad to say here, as an Oklahoma fan and someone that has covered this as closely as we have for the better part of the last, 7 or 8 years. But there was no simplification. We saw Oklahoma try and run the football using blocking schemes that we haven't seen all season long. We've been fucking terrible, and apologize, but we've been terrible trying to run the football so far this year. And your game plan was to try and make it even more complicated when you as an offense can't even do the basic fundamentals well. And on the broadcast, Adam, I don't know if you've had a chance to go back and watch the game.
I did not want to at all.
Herb Street was saying that they needed to go back to Jackson Arnold because that's how bad this offense was performing. And I don't think who's playing quarterback right now really matters that much when the offensive line is playing as bad as they are. They've got 5 wide receivers that are out. They can't run the football. And the game plan week in and week out, I mean, it's dog shit. I have no idea what Oklahoma's identity is on offense. I don't know what we're trying to do when we take the field. There's no continuity. There's no creativity. There's no rhyme or reason why Seth Luttrell calls the plays that he does. And it almost kind of feels like he's 2 or 3 plays behind from a standpoint of he doesn't know how to run a certain play so that the look that you're giving the defense at that point in time, 2 or 3 plays later, or maybe even the next series, because of what you've showed them so far this game, you're setting it up to where you can throw a wrinkle into it and you can take advantage of them over pursuing or playing a little bit differently. But it's just not good, Adam. We can throw the statistics out there here in just a second. I've got a long list of them, but it's the worst that I've felt about an Oklahoma football team in a long, long time, and that's saying something.
J-Mag in the chat kind of bringing up an interesting point there about how Brent Venables kind of allowed things to get fixed when the defense was really bad in 2022, and look where it is today, and saying that, is Brent doing that, with the offense? I don't know if I agree with J-Mag in terms of just letting it ride out. Brent talked about this in his press conference today because I believe it was Barry Tremmel who asked about, Brent Venables' philosophy when it comes to midseason staff changes. And Brent, this was, I think, maybe the most tone-deaf thing he said in the press conference today was, well, I've never been a part of a staff that has had midseason staff changes. And I was like, yeah, you've been at K-State when they were really good. You were at OU when they were really good. You were at Clemson when they were really good. And all those times, I don't think you ever had a bottom 10 unit on offense or defense. So, of course, you're not going to have too many opportunities to make changes in midseason form. Now, Seth Luttrell, Joe John Finley, I think people are kind of have their mob pitchforks out for those guys. And I agree with Brent in terms of I don't think it does a whole lot of good just to let those guys go in the middle of the year. Maybe you reassign some duties in terms of play calling, game plan, whatever. But I don't think it changes a whole lot. It's just kind of like having a head roll for the purpose of pleasing the fan base there, the same way that everyone was calling for Jackson Arnold to get benched, and turned out that didn't change a whole lot. But yeah, it's interesting that Brent has chosen basically to stick with his guys, at least for this week, for another opportunity for those guys to roll out and see what offense they might come up with this time. And we've seen different looks to that offense throughout the year. Mm-hmm. And it's been almost an extreme of what we saw last year in terms of Jeff Lebby, where we talked about this, even though he was a top 10 guy. And I think myself more than others was actually more appreciative of what Jeff Lebby did with our offense. But still, there were times where I was like, I don't know what the identity of our team is. I don't know what our go-to play is. We would see, a whole bunch of plays against Tulsa, and next week we'd see a totally different set of plays against Cincinnati. And it was like, there was no consistency there. And I feel like Seth Luttrell is like that to an extreme at this point.
Through 6 games, the Sooners do not have a running back over 250 yards rushing. They do not have a wide receiver over 250 yards receiving. That's not per game. That's total. That's total statistics for the entire 6 games that we've played so far this season. After the Texas game, we're 125th in total offense, 123rd in passing offense, 101st in rushing offense, 122nd in sacks allowed, 110th in time of possession. And I get it. I do, Adam. I get it. You've got the injuries at wide receiver. You've been playing musical chairs on the offensive line for most of the year. You're starting a true freshman at quarterback. But guess what, Adam? Nobody in their right mind that is an Oklahoma fan gives a shit 6 games into the season that we are getting such lackluster performances on offenses, not with the talent level that you still have on your roster. It's absolutely ridiculous how bad they are. And to me, it starts with the coaching. Taylor Tatum, not knowing what side to run the ball to. That's coaching. Bauer Sharp and Jake Roberts not, being fundamentally good enough to block a safety or an outside linebacker. That's coaching. There's not one player on the offensive side of the football right now that has gotten better from week 1 all the way now to week 7. That's coaching, and it starts with Seth Luttrell. Adam, I've been vocal about this especially when the hire was made. I've been very vocal about it for the last 3 to 4 weeks. Seth Luttrell should not have gotten this job. He should have never gotten this job in the first place. I think he's in over his head, as a play caller at this level. And I almost feel like it's a guessing game. Watch this dude call plays. And the fact that here we are at this point in the season with the stats that I just read off, and he still has a job is insane to me. If you don't want to fire him, if you want to play devil's advocate, if you don't want to fire him, at least give someone else a chance to call plays. What do you have to lose at this point? The season's over. You're not going to make the college football playoff. And Adam, realistically, I don't even think you're going to make a bowl game right now. If you don't beat South Carolina this weekend, you're damn sure not making a bowl game, because realistically, outside of Maine, there's not another win that I see on that schedule where Oklahoma's offense is going to be able to put up enough points to outscore another team. This isn't going to get any better this weekend against South Carolina. At least change something up to where it might give you a spark on offense to, at least go out there and try and put some points on the board.
Yeah, the Seth Luttrell hire is interesting because you look at his profile and it almost sounds like what we'd be looking for the next offensive coordinator, a guy that has coached, pretty good offenses, not the greatest, not elite, not top 5 or anything necessarily, but at UNC, he had top 25 offenses, top 10 at one point. At Indiana, he had top 25 offenses. That's very unusual for Indiana to be that good. I know they are this year, but that's the exception to the norm. Goes to North Texas as a head coach, has very good offenses there. And then, he comes to Oklahoma. He has experience at Oklahoma. He has continuity. He has relationships with your star quarterback. That kind of sounds like the guy that Oklahoma is looking for in the next offense coordinator, probably at another level. But from a profile perspective, that seems like, a reasonable hire, maybe not the greatest hire, but good enough in my opinion. And it almost doesn't compute to me in terms of, okay, this guy had the number 9 offense at North Carolina previously. He had the number 19 offense at North Texas, number 23 offense at North Texas previously. I don't understand how we're, bottom 120s on so many different statistics. And I don't know how much of that is Brent Venables being too involved and being involved in the wrong way or not being involved at all. And so I don't know what's going on there, but honestly, I don't know what changes you can make without firing him, because if Seth Luttrell is not calling the plays, then it's Joe John Finley. I don't know if anyone is ready for that necessarily just yet.
He needs to go too.
I think that's where we're headed at the end of the year. Does it do any good to do that now? I don't know. I mean, because Kevin Johns is a guy that is going to run a very similar offense to Seth Luttrell. He's probably your play caller at that point. He's currently an analyst for Oklahoma. You set somebody else up to that tight end room to coach them up, but then you're starting to get really thin staffed with analysts and things like that. So I don't think that makes anything necessarily better. So I don't know. I don't know what you really accomplished by doing that. And I know people don't want to hear that. I know that kind of sucks because we want head stroll. We want something to feel good about, just like we felt a little bit better because Arnold wasn't playing anymore, but I don't know that it achieves very much.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of stuff in the chat here regarding Bill Bedenbaugh in the offensive line. Let's see, pull it up here. Boom Scott says, Bill always gets a pass no matter how bad the offensive line is. And, to an extent, we've talked about how the offensive, has no identity through 6 games so far this season. I think that with the offensive line, is it a lack of talent? Yes, I 100% believe that. I think that the evaluation of high school recruits and lack of recruiting elite guys over the last couple of seasons has finally caught up to Oklahoma. And, Bill has missed pretty badly on his portal evaluations for guys that are on the roster this year. I mean, obviously Michael Tarquin, who, might be Oklahoma's best offensive lineman, but that's not really saying anything. He got benched in the Texas game. Fabici has been pretty piss poor so far. Spencer Brown, who really cares? I don't even know if he's on the team because you really never see him. But, Oklahoma has fallen short in recruiting the offensive line in recent years. Texas has not. And that was crystal clear on Saturday watching those two units play. And Adam, the offensive line, they're just bad compared to the level of competition that we're facing now in the SEC. Oklahoma could get away with the style of recruiting and how they were able to turn mid 3-star guys, low 4-star guys, be able to develop them in a to the standpoint from where they could be dominant, or at least pretty well competitive in the Big 12, be able to do enough to effectively run the football and score enough points, but not in the SEC, where you're facing at least 1 to 2 NFL guys on the defensive line every single week. We saw it with Tennessee, we saw it with Auburn, Texas. Now you're about to see it again this weekend with South Carolina and who they're bringing to town. And we still have to play Alabama. You still have to play Ole Miss. You still have to play LSU. This is not going to get any easier anytime soon. And what we've talked about on this podcast for the better part of the last, 18 months was eventually there was going to come a point in time when Oklahoma was firmly, entrenched in SEC play, and you were having to face this grueling schedule week in and week out. The cream was going to rise to the top if there existed any. And right now you're seeing kind of the results of lackluster recruiting on the offensive line. And again, this is not something that I think is going to be fixable this year, but I'm almost at the standpoint right now to where if you do lose this game on Saturday, Adam, and you fall to 4-3 with the only realistic shot of winning another game on the season is Maine, I think that you've essentially got to kind of empty the cupboard a little bit and start planning for 2025. And what I mean by that is I want to see guys like Eddie Pierre-Louis. I want to see Eugene Brooks. I want to see Troy Everett out there getting more snaps. I want to see more Heath Ozada, Logan Howland, starting to kind of give this fan base and give this coaching staff a little bit better idea of finding out, okay, this is what we've got. These are the young guys coming up in the program. This is where we're at right now. Let's plug them in. Let's see what they've got. Let's see what we're working with going into next year. Because make no mistake about it, I think we are heading towards, definitely a new offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. But I think that you're definitely going to be looking at a couple position coaches that are going to be, looking for a job on LinkedIn or Indeed. But yeah, get the young guys in there right now. Figure it out, because I just don't see this getting any better anytime soon.
Yeah, I think on the offensive line, I think there's enough guys there that like something should be better. Like you still should be better than all these metrics that are saying you're so bad. Sack protection. I think part of that is quarterback play. Like as far as pass protection goes, I think they're probably in like a C territory for me. If I was to give a letter grade to them, it's not like miserably bad, but it's good enough to like get more. But your quarterbacks, don't know what they're doing. So it's going to produce more sacks. Your running backs, I don't think we're elite at that position. I don't think we're very good at that position.
Hell no.
We might be average at best. DeMarco Murray, I think, has been a pretty disappointing coach for the most part. He's recruited some guys, but hasn't really developed a ton of them. I guess maybe you could credit him for what Eric Gray did. Maybe Kennedy Brooks, I guess maybe, but
I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me when you look at the running back position, you just turn on the TV on any given Saturday, you watch Alabama, you watch Oregon, you watch Texas a week ago, and you watch programs like Ohio State and Michigan. The running backs that are playing those positions with how they run the football, the level of physicality, being able to make guys miss in space, the speed, the elusiveness, Oklahoma does not have a running back on their roster that looks like that. And again, I think it starts with coaching. I think it's development. I think it's, bad evaluations at the high school ranks. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Adam. Oklahoma they are not as talented offensively as what we previously thought they were. And it's starting to show because you're going into these matchups week in and week out with these, top 5, top 10, top 25 SEC teams where, it's not X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes. And until you can get more and more, talented guys that are part of this team, then you're going to kind of see what's happening right now.
So we've established that everyone sucks, basically. We've got the same staff rolling out. Tyler, I'm curious your thoughts on this. What is Oklahoma's best offensive outing this year?
Shit. I mean, it's probably got to be
account for players available, account for the opponent. So like Temple, obviously bad opponent, good outing, but is that the best?
I'd say it's probably got to be Temple. I mean, it's surely it's not any SEC conference games.
To me, I think the Tulane game was the best outing. Now, there was a lull in the third quarter for sure, but the way that game started out, there was rhythm. It was getting into third and short, second and short. I think Jackson Arnold had pretty good confidence throughout most of that game. We saw him run. We saw him look clutch in certain points. He had the really bad interception where, a guy was running free at him in the backfield there, and he made a poor decision to throw that ball. But I think Tulane was probably the best outing there. And then, of course, Tennessee went downhill for him, and now he's sitting on the bench. And Brent Venables was asked specifically about the quarterback situation. Would he play two quarterbacks? Brent Venables said, I'm not going to rule anything out, essentially, but not necessarily the biggest fan of that. He says he's had conversations with Jackson Arnold about redshirting, but that Jackson Arnold has been engaged, has been a good teammate, has practiced well. He looked engaged on the sideline. He looked interested in going out there. The body language looked positive to me from what I could see on the sidelines. In my opinion, and I got reluctantly on board with starting Hawkins, but I was kind of like, I don't think this ends well. True freshman quarterback usually don't play good. He hasn't turned the ball over a ton, but he really hasn't made enough plays. He really has made 2 plays, 2 plays against Auburn, and that's about it.
And Adam, I don't think that that's something that's been said enough out loud. It's not the fact that by going with Michael Hawkins over Jackson Arnold, that just simply means that we think Michael Hawkins has a higher ceiling or, is going to be the better quarterback at Oklahoma. It had more so to do with the fact that Jackson Arnold turned the football over 3 times in a quarter and a half against Tennessee.
That was bad.
That was bad. You can't have that. You're not going to win any football games doing that, playing that type of football and turning the football over as much as he did. But I think that now you're at a point in the season where you're 4-2. And again, Jackson Arnold was the beneficiary of playing really, really bad competition early in the season against, the non-conference slate. And, Michael Hawkins, he played a half against Tennessee, played a game on the road at Auburn, and he just got done playing the number 1 team in the country in Texas. So I think that Michael Hawkins does deserve a start at home this weekend against South Carolina. But I do think that I'm getting closer and closer to the point where if Oklahoma does lose this football game this weekend against South Carolina, if the offense continues to look as shitty as it has, where you're not able to consistently move the football, you're not able to find a way to get into the end zone, you're only being able to score, 3, 10, 14 points, then I think that you're at the point right now as a coaching staff, and I hope that Brent Venables is thinking about it this way, to where whether it's Hawkins, whether it's Jackson Arnold, you've got to spend the last 5 games of this season, you've got to pick a guy that you think could be the future of your program. Maybe the ship has already sailed. Maybe it's too far down the river with Jackson Arnold. Maybe he's already made it up in his mind that, he got screwed over. He's not going to be part of this program next year. He's going to look to find another option in the transfer portal. But I don't think that it's too far going out on a limb and saying that Jackson Arnold deserves another shot at it this year. Especially if the wheels come off of this thing this weekend, which we'll get to our predictions here in a little bit, I expect it to do, then I think that if Jackson wants to go out there and play, I think you give him an opportunity, because you've got to pick a guy that you can try to build this thing around going into next season.
So it sounds like you would give Hawkins the entire game against South Carolina, barring 3 turnovers and a half, like Jackson Arnold had.
I think that for everything that he has done up to this point in the season, winning the game on the road at Auburn, he's come in, he's been tough, he's been gritty. He hasn't looked great at times, but again, he's played a top 30 Auburn team, and he's played number 6 Tennessee and number 1 Texas. I think that Michael Hawkins has done enough. He has shown enough to be able to at least deserve the right to go out there and start this upcoming weekend against South Carolina.
If it were me and I didn't have to worry about the fans or the team or the perception or anything like that, I think I would roll Arnold out there. But with all those factors in play. I agree
Start?
with you in the sense that
Start?
yes, start into play, and but I agree with you in the sense that like Hawkins, I think or not maybe not earned it, but deserves the chance to go out there and start at home, show what he can do against a South Carolina team there. I know he hasn't played a whole lot so far, so like we don't have a ton of data on him. The data we have so far, not really amazing. Like he's a true freshman. That's kind of what you expect. I'm looking a little bit bigger picture here, and if I were Brent Venables and we struggle to score and we're not doing anything middle of second quarter, entering the second half, I would consider the change to Jackson Arnold at that point, because I think you can kind of justify that rather than waiting until the end of the game and then being like, wishy-washy, like, I don't know what we're going to do. Okay, now on the road, here you go, Jackson Arnold, good luck against Ole Miss the following week. I'd rather get his feet a little bit wet in a game situation at home. Maybe he gets booed, but he has nothing to lose at that point. Maybe that's because we saw second half Alamo Bowl Jackson Arnold before. We've seen him do something far, far more than anything Hawkins has done to this point. And if we can unlock that confidence, and maybe he can do that now that he's been benched, like he has nothing to be afraid of. Worst that can happen is he goes back to the bench, he transfers anyway. So maybe that opens up some things for him. But I just, if I were choosing here and I had to hitch my wagon to one of these guys, I'm hitching it to Arnold at this point, because I think the ceiling is higher. And Hawkins, like, I kind of feel like we shot ourselves in the foot here, because now we got a situation where we're going to piss off one of these guys by picking them as a starter for the rest of the year. We're going to lose the other one. Whereas if we had stuck with Arnold the whole time and gotten something going to the point of like, okay, Hawkins, like you're still a young guy, like you're still going to be the future. But now we've kind of got our foot in both camps, and we're going to be in a situation where we're going to have to commit to one of them probably and lose out on maybe someone in the portal that's really good, or go to the portal and lose out on both of them. And I don't like that. I'd like to know that for sure that Arnold is not going to develop.
Welcome to modern day college football.
Yeah, we are screwed.
Yeah, we are screwed, Michael Scott. I think that one of the things that, again, I don't want people to just, gloss over and forget this. Whether it's Jackson Arnold or whether it's Michael Hawkins, this thing isn't getting fixed. I think that there's too many other factors that are playing into this, why this offense is as badly as it is. We've talked about the offensive line, the lack of talent, the lack of repetition as a unit, the lack of productivity as a unit, the running back position. It's been non-existent. Tight end is a liability, and wide receiver is just completely banged up. I've never seen anything like it. But I think that one of the things that's interesting going forward, Adam, is depending on the conversations that are being had behind closed doors. And again, from everything that Brent Venables has talked about, over the last 24 to 48 hours, Jackson Arnold has been one hell of a teammate. He's been practicing great during the week. He just, because of how he turned the football over against Tennessee, he hasn't had an opportunity to get back out there. But I think that you're now reaching the point, Adam, where going forward, because of the transfer portal being what it is, because of the highly likelihood that you're going to be dealing with a new offensive coordinator next year, you've got to pick a guy and throw him out there to try and get him some confidence, or at least get him to the point where, one, it's clear as night and day that he's the future of your program. He can go out there and you can feel confident about him going into next season, but also you've got to give him the confidence and give him the belief that no matter who you bring in as the next offensive coordinator, he's going to want to stay. He's going to want to work with this guy, and he's going to want to be the dude moving forward.
Yeah. We have texted a little bit back and forth about potential portal quarterbacks that might be available. We don't need to get into any specific names at this point. Maybe we'll do that later in the year, but it could be slim pickings out there, in my opinion. From an offensive coordinator perspective, don't give me any specific names. Like, give me your profile there, though. Like, what is it that Oklahoma needs to look for? What does the ideal candidate need to be?
You need to get a guy that, one, is an elite recruiter. He's got good ties to the state of Texas, to this part of the country. But I also think that you need a guy that, one, is creative. You need a guy that has the ability to adapt and make adjustments on the fly. And I think that also you need to have somebody that runs a certain scheme and has the ability to put a game plan together week in and week out, to where you're looking at an Oklahoma team going into, the next season, where you're going to have Texas, Bama, LSU, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Michigan. Gone are the days where Oklahoma's going to be able to go into any given Saturday and just simply be able to out-athlete an opponent. Regardless of, how good of a game plan is put together, Oklahoma's got the better players across the board. Oklahoma's going to be fine. They're going to win the football game. So you got to bring in an offensive coordinator that's going to be able to scheme some things open. And I think that we saw a great representation of that this past weekend watching Steve Sarkisian, call plays for Texas. And again, Steve Sarkisian, he's one of the best in America, probably top 2 and not 2. But I think that was the biggest difference when watching Oklahoma's offense just try to grind out 5 yards, figure out a way to at least get some type of momentum to, stay ahead of the change. Every single play, it felt like for the most part that Texas ran, it was easy. It was effortless. There was always an outlet for Quinn Ewers to get the ball to. If the first or second read wasn't there, there was a wide open running back out in the flat. There was a wide open tight end that was just sitting there that knew that I'm going to be Quinn Ewers, safety net. And there was no wasted plays. Everything had a purpose behind it. We need an offensive coordinator that's going to be innovative, somebody that's going to come in, be able to relate to these guys, be able to recruit the area, but also be able to go out there and win Oklahoma, a couple of football games schematically because of how well they're able to design plays and scheme a couple of things up that they wouldn't, typically be able to do just simply because they're not as talented as programs like Alabama and LSU.
Since we are calling this the rock bottom moment, meaning we can't get any lower than where we are right now, I do want to ask you about just general mood on Brent Venables and his future at Oklahoma. Like, where are you feeling, or what are you feeling about his opportunity to continue to be the coach at Oklahoma long term?
Adam, I tweeted it out after the game, riding back in the car after the Cotton Bowl, and I said that Brent Venables was hired back primarily as the head coach to restore defense to the University of Oklahoma. Okay. And I know that statistically you can look out there, you can see the score. It was 30-43 against Texas. You can see the 49-0. There's a lot of other factors that go into that outside of just how well your defense is playing being the reason why it scored, tallies up to be the way that it does. But when you look at in terms of him being able to restore the brand of defense that we've been longing for at Oklahoma, I say mission accomplished on that. He's recruiting at an elite level. He's doing all the things that need to be done on that side of the football, getting rid of Ted Roof, bringing in Zach Alley. He's made all the necessary changes, I think, on that side of the football to get Oklahoma back to where they need to be. But now this offseason, and he's going to be faced with, I think, is going to be the most important decision of his coaching career and the most important decision, during his time at Oklahoma. And if he wants to stay at Oklahoma, past 2025, he's got to go out there and he's got to nail this offensive coordinator hire. And if I'm Brent Venables, and I know this, and I promise he does, he's one of the most intelligent, knowledgeable guys, head coaches out there right now. And I think that I can sit here and at least say this for myself, Adam. In terms of a CEO type role, in terms of what a head coach looks like, who I want representing my program, who I want leading these guys, week in and week out, 24/7, 365, I don't think that it gets any better than Brent Venables, the human being. But I think that Brent Venables, much like he did with getting rid of Ted Roof and bringing in Zach Alley, he has to have the same type of hire. He's got to bring in the same type of guy on the offensive side of the football. And again, it's going to be tough, but if he wants to continue coaching at Oklahoma, he's got to nail this hire.
I liked what Jimmy says in the chat. Ranked at 49 total defense isn't mission done, but it is a lot better. I feel like we almost don't know what this defense really could be, because if you pair it with a complete or at least a reasonable offense, I feel like the defense is significantly better. And total defense isn't the best statistic out there. You kind of have to look at 3 or 4 different stats to really say this is the top defense in the nation, because Brent Venables' defense is so good in the red zone typically that they might give up some yards, but they'll be able to turn away scoring opportunities consistently.
But Adam, here's what I would say to that. And, we can talk about Baker's 2017 team, Kyler in 2018, Jalen Hurts in 2019. If those teams had this Oklahoma defense that we see right now, 49th in total defense in the country, Oklahoma wins 3 straight national championships, I think. Maybe 2 for sure, maybe not the 3rd. I don't know if anybody's beaten LSU in 2019. But Adam, I'm at the standpoint right now to where I would take a Landry Jones offense, even if you had a Paul Thompson-led offense combined with this defense, you're still probably winning 7, 8, 9 football games this year, because that's how far this defense has come. And I'm not sitting here and saying that, whoever the next offensive coordinator is going to be at Oklahoma, whoever comes in has got to get Oklahoma back to being a top 5 offense nationally. I don't think that's what it's going to take, but you've got to at least be able to come in here and figure out a way to, to score 28, 31 points a game. Because if Oklahoma can do that, combined with what Brent and Zach Alley are building on the defensive side of the football, you've got a pretty damn good recipe for success.
And that highlights a really good point that I think no one's really talking about, is that getting the defense right is the harder part. The offense, you can find plenty of guys that can come in, score 30 points a game. That's reasonable. Plenty of offensive coordinators can produce that. I don't think you need the greatest quarterback recruits or the greatest recruits in every position. Just be reasonable and build on that. And we'd obviously like to have all the 5 stars and have the highest scoring offense in the nation, but just have reasonable expectations there of top 20, in my opinion. And like, you can be in a really, really good position. The defense is the harder part to get right. And Brent Venables has that. Now it's a matter of, do we have the patience as a fan base, as an administration, as a program to get there? Because it's not happening this year. Will it happen next year? I think surely you take a step in the right direction with the new offensive coordinator, but do we have the patience to get to 2026 and 2027? Personally, I want a championship every year. So I don't know if I have the patience for that, but I kind of look to Michigan, not the sign stealing and all that, but they had a little bit of patience with Jim Harbaugh. I think the reason they had that was because they'd been in the dumps for years before he got there. So
it's the same way with Kirby Smart at Georgia.
Yeah, same thing. So it's like, do we have the patience to kind of get this right? Because I almost am like, hey, if Brent Venables can keep this defense continually improving and getting better, I'm almost like, dude, hire like 3 more offensive coordinators, because I believe the defense is the harder piece to get.
Yeah,
I may regret saying that, but yeah,
I don't think you're wrong
though.
The
right guy still.
And, Adam, the running joke, behind recruiting some of these elite 5-star guys has always been, okay, throw out a blank check. Whatever it takes, throw the blank check out there, sign it, and let's get that person brought in. I almost think that we've reached the point right now to where whoever the offensive coordinator is going to be in next year, and we talked about how Brent Venables has got to nail it. Brent's got to go to Joe C's office. He's got to go in front of the administration and say, okay, hey, this is where we're at. These are all the positive strides we've made on the offensive side of the football. We're clearly lacking on the other side of it. I need a blank check. I need to be able to go out there and, pay an offensive coordinator $2.5–3 million, because you're gonna have to go out there and bring in somebody that can recruit, somebody that can lead, somebody that can coach, and somebody that's hungry, maybe kind of the next young up and comer that's ready to make a name for himself. But also at the same time, on top of, providing $2.5–3 million for an offensive coordinator, you've got to give him $3, $4, $5 million budget set aside for a staff to be able to come in and bring in, a brand new set of offensive, position coaches as well. And this is the question I'm going to throw back to you. You look at this, you look at the entire staff offensively: Beanbo, Emmett Jones, DeMarco, Joe John Finley, Seth Luttrell. Feel like I'm leaving somebody out. Who do you think going into next season? Adam, you've got the magic wand. You're making the decisions. Are there any position coaches right now that you think are 100% safe? They need to be on this coaching staff next year, knowing that whatever offensive coordinator that you bring in is going to have the ability to dictate who stays and who goes.
I wouldn't put anyone at 100% safe, because I don't think the offensive coordinator is guaranteed to be the quarterback's coach. They could be the wide receivers coach. They could be an offensive.
We don't have a quarterback's coach right now.
I don't know. People say that. I don't know if I necessarily buy the fact that, like, just because someone didn't play quarterback in college doesn't mean they can't coach it. Because those same people are also calling for Cale Gundy to come back, a guy that never played wide receiver, never played running back. So Cale Gundy's not coming back though. But
I wish.
but
Michigan.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm just not going to put anyone at 100%. I think Bill Beanbo, of the last 5 years, have we had a great offensive line? No. Have we had a good offensive line? Probably twice. Have we had bad offensive lines? At least twice, I think, at this point. So, at a certain point, like, we can't keep harping back to 2018, 2017 with Bill Beanbo. We can't keep harping back to, well, he put Tyler Guyton in the league. Like, the dude played 9 games last year. Like, we're getting rentals at that point. We're not getting foundational building blocks. So it makes you wonder there. So I wouldn't put anyone at 100% safe.
Yeah, I completely. I kind of agree with you. I think that in a perfect world, you would like to have Emmett Jones back, and you would like to have Bill Beanbo back, especially if Bill can hang on to the current offensive line class that he's got building right now. Yeah, you want to have Bill back as coach next year, 100%. Now we'll see what happens. Obviously, there's a long way to go between now and the month of December. And that's kind of the crazy part about this whole conversation too, Adam, is does it feel like we've hit rock bottom? Yes. But we also have 6 more games left. So
we could score 0 still.
We could score 0. I don't think it could get any worse, but yeah, if we get shut out on Saturday against South Carolina, then yeah, I think that there's a lot of coaches that are going to be on the chopping block as well. So, Adam.
Yeah, I got one from the chat here. Randy asking about Jackson Arnold giving up his redshirt status. We talked about that a little bit earlier, and I hope we see that. I hope we see him again, because I don't know. I'm not sold on Hawkins. We talked a little bit about that in links, but
I think that's clear as day. If you see Jackson Arnold come back on the field, I think that that's a pretty clear indication that there's at least a better than 50-50 chance that he's at Oklahoma next year, because obviously he burned the red shirt a year ago, having to come in when Dylan Gabriel got hurt against BYU. But yeah, that kind of remains to be seen. I thought that Gabe Eichert that made the point when talking about the green dots on their helmets.
Yeah, and that
Saturday.
was interesting. And I know we tweeted back at him on the rule clarification. I don't know if you didn't know or didn't see it, but it feels like every quarterback should have a green dot on their helmet. Like, because if you get to your third string quarterback, does the opposing defense have to take their green dot guy or green dot helmet off? I don't know how that works. It seems kind of weird that's only limited to 2 helmets, but I don't know. I think Jackson Arnold is the guy that they're going to go to. By all accounts, body language, what Brent's saying in press conferences, it sounds like he's willing to play if they're going to him, as long as it's not mop-up duty. I think they go to Casey Thompson in that scenario, but I think he's willing to play if they're saying, hey, like the game is in question and we need somebody to go out and perform for us. I think he's willing to be the guy, which is as admirable, at least. If you hate him as a player and you think he's just turnover prone, like at least admire that, because nobody's really doing that in this day and age of college football.
Adam, to put you on the spot right here before we get to our bet segment, followed by our OU South Carolina picks, does Oklahoma make a bowl game this year?
Yes. Yes. I feel like you're going to win something you really shouldn't, because it's college football. I don't know if that's Missouri. I don't know if Ole Miss,
just gonna beat some team 7-3.
Lays an egg. Yeah, I feel like you're going to at some point. Maybe it's South Carolina this week. You're playing at home, like that counts for something. We have yet to see Hawkins at home. Maybe he's like a lot of true freshmen and he's really good at home and has tons of confidence, is slinging it all over the place. Maybe that's the case. We'll find out. Maybe it's Bama. Maybe it's Bama at home. I don't know. But
you want to score predictions now or get to bets?
Let's do bets. So I know you've been dragging your feet. You don't want to get to this section. You want to push it off.
It's been a bad last couple of weeks. I've had some bad beats.
I have closed the gap on you. I'm within 2 games. I'm 14-21. You are ahead 16-19. Both of us trying to find our way above 500, but it's getting a little bit closer. I had 2 winning weeks in a row. I knew I wouldn't be under 500, every week, every season, throughout the entire season, which I guess means I get to go first again. So I will take, for my first bet, UCLA traveling on the road to Piscataway, take on Rutgers. Scarlet Knights are 4.5-point favorites. I will ride with that because of the time zone differences. I believe this is an 11 a.m. kick or 11 a.m. Central kickoff, so 9 a.m. Pacific time for the Bruins. We all know the stats there. Those teams traveling way outside of time zones, never good. So give me the Scarlet Knights to win here.
I'm going out to Big 12 country, going to Provo, Utah. Oklahoma State Cowboys traveling on the road to take on the Cougars. BYU, one of the kind of one of the darling teams right now in college football, one of the surprise, teams in college football right now. Oklahoma State's going to be, they're a dumpster fire right now. If there's one thing right now, as bad as it is for Oklahoma, it's not a whole lot better than up the road in Stillwater. So BYU's got a high-powered offense. I think that even though Oklahoma State is coming off of the bye, I think that BYU's rolling right now. Just to prevent the possibility of a backdoor cover, I'm going to take BYU first half here. Give me the Cougars -6.5 first half.
For my number 2, I'm going to go up to Knoxville, Bama, traveling to Neyland to take on the Volunteers. Now, yes, Bama has struggled. They lost to Vanderbilt. They didn't look good against South Carolina. They didn't look good against South Florida. But in their premier games against Wisconsin and Georgia, they've looked really good. Bama's a 2.5-point favorite. Tennessee does not look like the same type of team that they were against Kent State. Anyone they've played with the Pulse, they've really struggled with. So I think Bama pulls this one out fairly easily, maybe by 2 possessions there. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Going to the Big Ten here in Nebraska, traveling on the road to Bloomingdale. Take on Indiana. Hoosiers currently a 6.5-point favorite. Indiana, one of the 2 teams remaining that have not trailed in a game all season long. And Nebraska's got a good defense. Indiana's got, I think, an even better offense at this point. I think that they do just enough to cover this number. Give me the Hoosiers -6.5.
I like that. The Troops let me down this past week, but I got a winning record, so I won't bash them too much. I am wearing the military hat here for those watching on YouTube. So I will trust the Troops again, but I'm not trusting Air Force. I'm going to go with Navy hosting Charlotte and Annapolis. I'm going to take the over on 55.5. One of the most efficient and effective offenses are the midshipmen, so I like them to be able to cover there. The over against the 49ers, who are not bad offensively, so I think they'll contribute.
I like it. Pick number 3 for me, Adam. This one feels way too easy, but this is one of the hottest teams in the country right now. Notre Dame traveling on the road to take on Georgia Tech. Irish are an 11.5-point favorite right now. They figured something out offensively with quarterback Riley Leonard. I think that they go on the road to take on the Yellow Jackets. I think Notre Dame gets a big win on the road. Give me the Irish -11.5.
I was kind of on the fence on picking this game when it was at 8.5. It's risen to 11.5. And now I'm like, okay, I feel a little bit better about that one. It's not exactly a home game for Georgia Tech. It's being played at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Superdome. I don't know what it's called in Atlanta there. But I was like, okay, if you're going to pick that one, I'll go the opposite way and try to pick up a game on you. So I'll take the Yellow Jackets to cover the 11.5.
Interesting. Okay, pick number 4 for me. Iowa going on the road up to Michigan State. Hawkeyes currently a 5.5-point favorite. Iowa's playing some really good football right now. It kind of feels like they found a pulse on offense. And Oklahoma right now kind of feels like we're the SEC version of Iowa over the last few years. So that's where we're at right now as a program. It's sad to say, but I think that Iowa, they are one of the hottest teams in the country right now. They have figured things out offensively. I like the 5.5 number. I think they go up to East Lansing and get a big time win. Give me the Hawkeyes -5.5.
My wife's family hates you for that pick, but I think it is a very smart one. So I like it. My final pick, I'm going to go with some Wednesday night action. So maybe people are listening or watching this show after this game has happened. Hopefully you're saying good job, Adam, and not laughing at me, but I'll take the Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky +2.5 traveling to Sam Houston. I think the winner of this game plays for the Conference USA Championship at the end of the year, but I think the Hilltoppers just a little bit deeper, a little bit more experience there. So hopefully can get out to a little 1-0 start before the weekend games kick off.
All right, I like it. Just to round this thing up for me, I'm going to duck as I say this. It's the game of the week in college football. Georgia going on the road down to Austin to take on Texas. Longhorns currently a 3.5-point favorite. I like Texas in this one, Adam. I think that from everything that we've seen, I still think that they are a little bit untested on defense because they have not faced an elite quarterback. That's going to change this weekend with Carson Beck coming to town. But I think that Texas is the most complete. They are the best overall football team in the country right now. And here's kind of a stat for you. Kirby, 0-3 in true road games at Georgia versus AP top 10 teams. I think that they go on the road this weekend. Texas handles them pretty well. I like Texas by double digits on Saturday. So give me the Longhorns -3.5.
Do you feel like Texas is the best bet to win the national championship right now? Because after seeing them, I'm like, I think they're really good. I think Quinn Ewers still kind of gives me a little bit of pause because there's moments where I'm like, man, I don't know, it feels like something's a little missing there.
I don't know how well Quinn Ewers translates to the NFL, and I feel like he is the ultimate beneficiary of having Steve Sarkisian as his head coach and offensive coordinator, just because I think Sark does a tremendous job of setting his quarterbacks up for success with how, he schemes open wide receivers, with how, he finds ways to be able to, create easy plays, easy passes for his quarterbacks. If I had to put money on a team right now, I know that Oregon looked good. I still think that Ohio State could probably get them a little bit later in the year. I'd probably take Texas right now.
Yeah.
God, that sucks to say.
I think I'll go with them.
But we don't compare. We don't compare us to Texas.
No, I'm in somewhat of agreement in terms of they seem good. There's no Georgia or Bama that we traditionally see, at least at this point in the year. Maybe those two programs develop. Maybe Ohio State develops in that manner. Maybe Oregon continues to take a step forward. But yeah, it kind of feels like Texas by default is who you roll with at the moment. But I still have trust issues with Quinn Ewers, like if push comes to shove there. So we'll see. We'll continue to watch that. Another team just do well while our team sucks. So let's talk about the game against South Carolina here, get into our score predictions. Take a look at the chat here. Carson is giving a 3-0. I guess South Carolina win is what he's rolling with there. So might be that. Jimmy gave us two different scores, 13-10 OU, and then upped it to 20-17 OU. So confidence rose in the 10 minutes apart that he picked those two different scores. Lance sounds like he's looking pretty optimistic about Oklahoma, looking pretty different. I don't know if I feel there 45-6. That's too rich for my blood. And then Brandsy 7 just says we're not going to move the ball, which is probably 100% accurate there. Tyler, what's your score prediction? How do you see this game playing out?
Adam, I'm shocked that Oklahoma's favored this weekend in this matchup. It's got to be, I guess, because it's at home. South Carolina should be 5-1 right now. Oklahoma's facing a Gamecocks football team that should have wins over LSU at home and last weekend in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. If the Gamecocks don't shoot themselves in the foot a couple of times, I think that they win those games, and this is a much different outlook on Shane Beamer up there in Columbia. I think the thing that this thing boils down the most to me for is I think that Oklahoma defensively, I think that they're going to come out having the home crowd, having the home field advantage. They're going to be up for this game. They're going to, be juiced up, ready to go. I think that they are able to hold South Carolina down a little bit. But on the flip side, South Carolina, arguably top 3, maybe top 2 defensive fronts in the SEC. They probably got the best collection of edge guys in the SEC that Oklahoma's going to face this year. Oklahoma's not going to be able to block them, plain and simple. I don't care if it's Jackson Arnold. I don't care if it's Michael Hawkins at the quarterback position. Collectively, over 4 quarters, Oklahoma's not going to be able to do enough on the offensive line to be able to give these guys the opportunity to make some plays through the air or to try and find what used to be the Oklahoma running game that we saw for quite some time. I just don't see any sign of life from this Oklahoma offense. I don't know how they score enough points to be able to win this thing. Give me South Carolina 24, Oklahoma 13.
Yeah, I agree with you. In terms of like this offense, we've been calling for adjustments and changes and to recognize who they are and to play the style of game that we need to see in terms of slowing it down. Maybe that helps more at home. Maybe Hawkins looks better more at home than he did, in the Cotton Bowl. Maybe things are opened up a little bit to allow him to make plays. It kind of feels like he's coached to just not take any risk. And for a guy with Hawkins' skill set, it's like you kind of have to let him loose a little bit because he's a true freshman. Like he's not going to be able to make it through all his reads. You kind of have to let him just go out there and play a little bit of backyard football. And I don't have any faith in the coaching staff to make those adjustments. I don't have any faith in the coaching staff to put together a good game plan because outside of that opening series against Tulane, I haven't seen them come out and look like they knew what they wanted to accomplish and actually be able to execute it. And so I don't see us having very much success. I don't think that they will turn to Arnold like I would kind of like them to, at least to give him a little bit of opportunity there. But and I know people will say the defense, can help Oklahoma score. And it's like, yes, that's true. But our offense can help their defense score just as easily. So South Carolina, they're not a very good offensive team. I think this is an opportunity for Oklahoma's defense to really help out the offense a ton. So I think Oklahoma will be able to score a few points, but it's just not going to be enough, in my opinion. I've got this one really tight, though. I've got South Carolina 17, Oklahoma 16. I really hope I'm wrong. We got to get this bad taste out of our mouth. I think the fans are on the edge. I think we will get a lot of boos on Saturday. It could get ugly if things, if Oklahoma's not able to move the ball after just even a couple of possessions. So, but yeah, I don't have any faith in this coaching staff to have anything figured out at this point. Now it's never as bad as it seems. It's never as good as it seems. And it was really bad on Saturday. So maybe we're a little bit over calculating for that, but yeah, we'll see what this team comes out and looks like after a players only meeting. Those always help out so much. So we'll see.
We're not making a bowl game.
Not much else to be said there.
Calling my shot right now.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll come back next week and talk a little bit more positively, hopefully about a win or maybe some positive developments for this Oklahoma program. We appreciate everyone that watches on a regular basis. Lots of regular names that we see in the chat. We know there's lots that are listening and watching later on. We appreciate you guys making us a part of your weekly routine, and we'll be back next Tuesday for the next episode of The Main Line.